Hello and welcome to Catholic Current, where we discuss our faith and give you an update on events affecting the Church in the United States. From Washington, D.C., I'm Mara Moser. This week, we continue our series focusing on the USCCB's National Catholic Mental Health Campaign. This month, Bishop Edward Burns of the Committee on Laity, Marriage, Family Life, and Youth joined us in the USCCB studio with 3 Catholic mental health professionals to discuss how this issue impacts members of the clergy. We'd like to bring you that important conversation on this episode of Catholic Current. We hope you find it helpful. Priests, in their roles as pastors, care for others spiritually. How can they care for themselves? Who's looking out for the priests?
Well, I think that it is the responsibility of the bishop. It is the responsibility of the diocese. It's also a responsibility of the presbyterate to watch out for one another. And the presbyterate is the makeup of the priest within the diocese. And so there should be a fraternal concern. When looking at the bishop, he should have a personal concern. And the bishop needs to act fraternally, pastorally, administratively. I have to say that as a bishop, and I've been a bishop for 15 years, I really take seriously the words of our Lord Jesus Christ to Peter when he said, "Strengthen the brothers." And so I do believe that that's a part of our apostolic mission, and our relationship with our priests is to strengthen them, keep them strong, keep them vital, and be attentive to what their needs might be. So as a bishop, the diocese too, so that the clergy office plays an important part of fortifying our priests.
And what are you seeing?
I'm seeing hard-working priests who exhaust themselves for Jesus Christ. It's just amazing how they give and give and give of themselves. And they are also people pleasers. And they want to be there for the faithful. I see them as dedicated and committed, faithful, and it is important for us to make sure that they're strong in their ministry.
Yeah, would you agree with that assessment?
I would. The language going on in my own mind when you were speaking, Bishop, was we all need a posse. When they say, well, if you're making a decision to get 3 opinions, and you've got to have a team together in place to do that. People who are willing to look out for each other. Because many priests are living in smaller sized rectories, often alone, and the isolation that can bring isn't always the best environment to your own self-care.
Yeah, and I also think that there's a lot more work to do than hands to do it. And I think that very often priests have a hard time setting time boundaries or saying no to someone, or they start to plan something and then they have a hospital call. But there's just a lot of work there. I think a lot of the priests feel the responsibility that if they don't do it, who's going to do it? And that makes it hard for them to engage in self-care. They put themselves last a lot.
Yeah, some of those challenges that you see out there with hardworking priests, as the challenges mount, then you see things like depression emerge, burnout emerge, anxiety, perfectionism. And those are some of the real mental health common colds that we see among priests, but we also see them among laity and other people as well, too.
Part of what I have as a fundamental belief, a slogan I use, which is that ordination or consecration is not a vaccination, and that most of the challenges that the priests are going through are the same challenges that everyone goes through as a human being. There'll be midlife, there'll be ups and downs, and priests who are caregivers sometimes need to learn, especially fresh out, to put the oxygen mask on first, to take care of themselves so they can take care of others.
I also think having healthy relationships, which you were mentioning, Bishop, is really important, and I think that becomes difficult. So I think that the men that do form solid relationships and feel kind of a band of brothers have so much more support, and they also have people looking out for them. But I think when a priest becomes isolated, when they don't feel very close to other men in the presbyterate, they are worried about, can they trust people? they're worried about their image. There's like a lot of times people they're playing a role and they know that it's important, but they can get a little lost in that role, and it's hard for them to really be honest then with some people with what they need. And the most beneficial people to do that would be other priests, other brother priests. So I think the interpersonal relationship piece of it is important. And there's also just the body physical parts. So, a lot of times, a lot of priests don't have some basic skills, like they've never really learned how to cook, for example. And that becomes a real difficulty. Like at St. John Vianney Center in our Lifestyle Balance program, we've had priests that come in and say they eat fast food 6 times a week. They don't have time to shop. They don't have time to cook. They don't know how to, get 5 meals out of a rotisserie chicken kind of thing. And so those basic sleeping, these basic, health hygiene things can often fall by the wayside. I think healthy priests are very mindful of that, exercising.
As a priest, it's important to help equip the priest with an element of self-awareness and a self-mastery. I think it's important that they listen to their bodies. It's important that they are attentive to how they're doing. They know if they're firing on all pistons or not. When they mount the pulpit to proclaim a gospel, that they can see reflected off the faces of the people they're preaching to, whether or not they're making a connection or not. So I think that they have to be attentive to their own bodies, their own self-awareness, and then also have the discipline for a self-mastery, to get out there to do what is necessary to begin firing on all pistons.
And I think, too, there's a lot the laity can do to promote this also. Just someone coming up to the priest and waiting for him after Mass or something, and instead of coming to him with a problem, saying, I'm here to check on you. How are you doing today? How do you carry all of this? And kind of opening the door for him to respond.
I do know that there's some things that probably are not very helpful. So in thinking of coming here, I had one priest come up to me and said, could you please say not to give priests alcohol? It's like a gift that people like to give. One priest mentioned one time that he got 24 bottles of alcohol at Christmas time. It's not healthy for anybody. And another priest had said, my parishioners love me to death, and they knew I loved drinking, so they gave me a lot of alcohol. They were loving me to death. So the idea of healthy options is, I think, really important, because a lot of priests have no time to do these kind of things.
Same for a box of chocolates.
And a pie. What is one man living alone going to do with a pecan pie? So things like that might be thought out a little bit. What would be helpful for them? So.
For priests to receive a text message from a faithful, to say, your homily was fantastic today. It just is for him to throw back a thumbs up. It really helps. It puts a spring in his step, as he goes through ministry. But also for the faithful to express concerns of his well-being is an expression of love and affection. And so that has to be exercised also.
We all have wounds. We're human beings. I'm a big fan of the Doubting Thomas, who wanted to see the wounds to be sure that it was Christ, because that's what we all carry. We have wounds in life. And the earlier I think that priests and seminarians are exposed to getting help, the more likely they will be to continue getting it in their as their ministry develops. So at the seminarian level, et cetera, it would be great for the human formation to be coaxed along with some good structured programming.
I think I would hope that this would encourage the priests to reach out for help. I think a lot of times people come in for treatment and they think they're the only one struggling with whatever this is, and they've carried this burden by themselves for a long time.
Very good point.
And it's really unfortunate they're not the only one, and there are solutions. So
where can they turn, Patricia?
Well, I think that there's a few options. I think that there could be resources within their own diocese that they can do for outpatient work. They could always come for an assessment at a place like St. John Vianney, St. Luke's. I think reaching out to their bishop for help, that's really a lot of guys' first step. And a lot of times when someone reaches out to their bishop to help get the help, it really just opens everything up. It works really very quickly.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Catholic Current. You can find out more about this week's topic by visiting us online at usccb.org or follow us on social media at USCCB. I'm Mara Moser. See you next time.